Hi everyone, this is Algebra 2 Lesson 26, and this lesson covers trinomial factoring and overlapping right triangles. Alright, first we're going to do a review of polynomial multiplication, and that's going to help us get to trinomial factoring, because trinomial factoring just means going backwards, right? So these are factors, because they're being multiplied, like if we said 2 times 3, right? 2 and 3 are factors, right? So this is a factor, and this is a factor. Okay, so when we're factoring a trinomial, that means we're just going backwards from what we do when we rainbow. So first I'm going to rainbow this. I'm going to say x times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. 2 times x would be positive 2x. And 2 times negative 5 would be negative 10. And I just stacked my like terms there. And then I'm going to add those two, and I'm going to get minus 3x minus 10. Now, there's something that you can notice when you do this. There's always a pattern. If I multiply my two numbers together, I'm going to get my last number. So 2 times negative 5 is negative 10 there. Okay? And then to get your middle term, you're going to add your 2. So if I add 2 plus negative 5, I'm going to get negative 3. Okay, so let's try another one. You'll see how that works again. So b times b would be b squared. B times negative 1 is negative b. B times 4 would be positive 4b. And then 4 times negative 1 would be negative 4. Now when we put those together, we're going to get b squared plus 3b, because 4 and negative 1 would be positive 3 minus 4. So if we look at that, we can see that if we add these together, 4 minus 1, we're going to get 3. And if we multiply them, 4 times 1, we're going to get 4. Okay, let's see if I'm going to work this one without actually rainbowing it. I'm just going to use the pattern. So the first term will be x squared. My second term, I'm going to add negative 3 and negative 4, and I'm going to get negative 7x. And then my last term, I'm going to multiply them. So negative 3 times negative 4 will be positive 12. Now let's rainbow it out and see if it works. So if I do x times x, I get x squared. X times negative 4 would be negative 4x. 3x would be negative 3x. And 3 times 4 would be positive 12, because I did a negative times a negative. So I'm going to get x squared, and then 3 plus 4 is negative 7x plus 12. So when it says that we're factoring trinomials, we're just going to start here, and we're going to end up there, right? So we're just undoing our rainbowing. So the first example. All right. The first thing you have to do before you can start factoring a trinomial is you got to make sure that they're all in the right order. So we always want our squared term first, then our x term in the middle, so minus 5x, and then our plus 6 on the end. Okay, always make sure they're in the right order. Then we're just going to draw two sets of parentheses, and we're going to put an x in the beginning. Now we just have to think of two numbers that when we multiply, they equal positive 6. When we add, they equal negative 5. So if we put down all the factors of positive 6, that'll be 6 times 1 or 3 times 2. We got to come up with ones that when we add, we get negative 5. And we can put the negative on either side if we want to. Now if we did negative 6 and actually, they both have to be negative, because when we multiply, we end up with a positive number. If we had a negative and a negative, if we multiply those two together, we're going to get a positive number. If we had a positive and a negative, this plus sign couldn't exist. It would have to be a negative number, because a negative times a positive makes a negative. All right, so 6 is out. There's no way that we can add 6 plus 1, negative or positive, and get negative 5. So it's going to have to be 3 and 2, and they're both going to have to be negative. Alright, so let's test it out and make sure. Alright, so if we did x times x, we would get x squared. X times 2, we'd have negative 2x. Negative 3 times x, and 3 times 2 would be positive 6. And we get x squared minus 5x plus 6. So all we did was we went backwards. All right, let's try another one. That one is in the right order, which is good. But we have a negative on our x term. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that negative out. So to do that, I'm going to multiply this whole thing times negative 1, right? So I'm going to get negative 1 times x squared minus 5x minus 14, okay? Now when I factor, I'm going to draw my two parentheses, and I'm just going to put a negative 1 in front of it, okay? So I need two numbers that when I multiply, it equals 14, negative 14, and when I add, it equals negative 5. Okay, so my factors of 14 would be 14 and 1, and then I could do 7 times 2, and that's pretty much it. Now, if we want to get to 5, it's looking like 7 and 2 is going to be our best bet right there. So I'm going to go ahead and put my x as the first part, and then I've got a 7 and a 2. Now I just got to figure out which one's negative. Well, to get negative 5, I would have to have a negative 7 and a positive 2. 7 minus 2 makes negative 5. And so that's the answer to that one. And to make sure, to double check, right, all I have to do is say, okay, I could rainbow this, so I could say negative 1 times x minus 7, x plus 2, and then I could rainbow the whole thing. And then that would be minus 7x, and then 7 times 2 is negative 14, and then I just add those, minus 5x, oh, that's positive 14, no, that's negative 14. Right, and then my last step would be multiply the whole thing times negative 1, so that means I would have negative x. Let's see. Negative x squared. So I just changed the sign on all of these when I multiply times negative 1. Right, so that negative goes over here, and then the negative is going to go over here, so that would make that be positive 5x, and the negative is going to go over here, plus 14, and that's what we started with. Another way to double check is just make sure, after you've written it down, that if you do negative 7 plus 2, you're going to get negative 5, and then if you multiply them, 7 times 2, you get 14. Alright, let's do another one. Alright, this one I have to rearrange it, so first I'm going to go 3x squared plus my 6x plus 24. Okay, this one, I can pull a factor out of here before I even try to factor it. So I can pull a number out of here. All of these numbers here are divisible by 3. So if I pull a 3 out, how many 3's are in 3? 1, so now I have x squared. How many 3's are in 6? 2, so that would be plus 2x. And then how many 3's are in 24? 6 times 4 is 24, so that would be 6. Alright, so I'm going to have my 3 first. Now I need numbers that multiply to get 6 and add to get 2. So my factors of 6 will be 6 times 1, 2 times 3. Let's see, 3 times, oh, oops, I see where I went wrong. That didn't seem right. 3 times 8 is 24, not 6. There we go. So I need it to equal 8 when I multiply. So my factors of 8 would be 8 and 1, 4 times 2, and that's it. Alright, it's going to have to be 4 and 2 if I do 4 plus 2, 4 minus 2. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to have a negative right there. That's minus. So that would be real careful about those positives and negatives. The negative is on the 3x right there. That's a positive. Okay, so that means I'm pulling negative 3, which is going to change the signs for those. So that makes that be negative 2 and negative 8. Right? So negative 3. There we go. Alright, so that means I need to get negative 8 and come up with negative 2. Alright, that means that'll work. X and X, and then I'm going to put a 4 and a 2. Alright, and then I'm going to need a negative 4 and a positive 2. So if I do negative 4 times 2, I'm going to get negative 8, which is right. And then if I do negative 4 plus 2, I'm going to get negative 2, which is right. Alright, so the answer to that one, you write it out better. That's going to be negative 3 times x minus 4 times x plus 2. And on your homework, that's what you're going to write for your homework. You don't have to rainbow it back out or anything. Alright, the next part of this lesson, oh, one more of these. Alright, so we're going to be real careful on this one about our negatives and our positives. I've got a bunch of numbers here. I'm going to put my highest exponent first, so that's going to be negative 2x to the 4th. And then I'm going to have plus 12x to the 3rd. And then I'm going to have plus 32x squared. Okay, so first thing I can factor out is the 2. And I'm going to pull negative 2 because I don't want any negatives attached to my leading variable there, my x with the highest exponent. Alright, I can also pull out 2 of these x's. All of these have at least 2 x's in there. Alright, so once I do that, I say negative 2x times something makes negative 2x to the 4th. Well, that's going to be x squared. Okay, now this next one, negative 2 into 12 would be negative 6x. I'll have one x left. So how many negative 2's are in 12? Negative 6 of them. How many negative 2's are in 32? Let's see, 2 times, it's going to be a negative because a negative and a positive. And then 2 times 16. And then my x's are gone on that one. Now it looks like a polynomial that we can factor. Okay, so now I'm going to write negative 2x squared, just what was at the beginning, and then I'm going to write 2 parentheses. Alright, so I need them to multiply to 16, negative 16, and then I needed to add to negative 6. So my factors of negative 16 would be 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 6, 4. Alright, so there they are. And I need 2 numbers that I can put together, subtract one from the other, and get negative 6. I'm pretty sure it's 8 and 2 right there. And if I do a negative 8 and a positive 2, I'm going to get negative 6. So I put x in each one of these, a 2 and an 8, and then my 8 would need to be negative, and my 2 positive. And there's the answer to that one. Alright, this next part is about overlapping triangles. Alright, so in some overlapping triangles, what we really have is 2 triangles here, right? So we have our small triangle, and we have our big triangle. One's over top of the other one. Okay, so our small triangle right here, right, that's our first one. Its measurements are A, 6, and 4. And then our big triangle, this right here will be C. The bottom will be 6 plus 4, so that's 10. And the top would be A plus B. Okay, and we have to find A, B, and C. Alright, so for A, down here, I could do A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Right, A would be, we'll call that 6 squared plus B squared is 4 equals C squared. C squared is going to be what my A is, so I might as well just go ahead and replace that with A. Okay, 6 times 6 is 36. 4 times 4 is 16. I gotta add those together. 6 and 6 will be 12. Carry the 1. 3, 4, 5, 52 equals A squared. So that means that A is going to equal the square root of 52. Alright, so if A equals the square root of 52, alright, so let's change back over to black. We'll put our answers over here. Okay, so for C, it says that we can use our scale factor. So we went from 6 to 4. No, we're going from 6 to 10. Got to remember that those are added together there. Okay, so that means that 6 times our scale factor equals 10. Then we just divide by 6, and we're going to get a scale factor of, we can reduce that, be 5 over 3. Our scale factor is 5 over 3, and so that means we just multiply 4 times our scale factor, right? So 6 times our scale factor equals 10, so 4 times our scale factor is going to equal C. Right, so that means I'm going to do 4 times, I'll just make that be 4 over 1, 5 over 3. 4 times 5 is 20 over 3. So C is equal to 20 over 3. And we've already done ones like that before, where we use the scale factor. Okay, so this last part, we have to figure out what B is. So to find B, alright, if we try to use the Pythagorean theorem to find B, we get a second degree equation because we have the square expression, square root of 52 plus B. So we won't use Pythagorean theorem, but we'll use the small to large scale factor of 5 over 3. So our scale factor is 5 over 3. We need to keep that. So we're going to say this will be square root of 52 times our scale factor equals square root of 52 plus B. So square root of 52 times our scale factor, which is 5 over 3, equals the square root of 52 plus B. Okay, so now alright, so that's actually, we should put this on the other side. It's going to make it look better. So if we said 5 over 3 times the square root of 52, there we go. Our scale factor times this one is going to equal that one, right? So this square root of 52 is just right here. It's A, right? It's the length of the hypotenuse of the smaller triangle. And then a plus b, so square root of 52 plus b is the hypotenuse of the other triangle. And we're just multiplying it times the scale factor. All right, so we're going to multiply both sides times 3 to get rid of that 3 right there. So we're going to have 5 times the square root of 52 equals, I got to multiply that times 3. So that would be 3 times the square root of 52, right? Rainbow that, and then 3b plus 3b. Now, these are like terms, 3 times the square root of 52 and 5 times the square root of 52. So I can subtract 3 times the square root of 52 and 3 square root 52, and I'm going to get 2 times the square root of 52 equals 3b, and then I just divide both sides by 3, and I'm going to get 2 times the square root of 52 over 3 equals b. I know that's a little complex. You may have to go rewind that and watch it a couple of times or read the explanation that's in the book. But once you understand what you're doing, it's not super hard. All right, go ahead and pause the video and we'll work the practice problems. All right, let's work these practice problems. First thing I need to do is rearrange this one so that I have x squared as my first term, minus 6x, and then minus 7 as my last term. I can't factor anything out right off the bat, so I'm just going to draw my double parentheses. I'm going to put my x at the beginning of both of those. Now, I need it to multiply to equal negative 7, and it's got to add, multiply, add to equal negative 6. If I did 7 times 1 and I had negative 7 and positive 1, that would make, yep, that's it. And if it was negative 7, positive 1, I'm going to get negative 6 when I add those and negative 7 when I multiply those. So that's the answer to A, x minus 7, x plus 1. All right, B. That one's already arranged properly, but I got to get rid of this negative. So I'm going to multiply, do negative 1. And then I would end up with the x squared minus 6x minus 16. Okay, so it just changed all the signs in there because I don't want a negative on my x squared term. All right, so I need something that multiplies to negative 16 and adds to negative 6. So my factors of 16 would be, 8 times 2, I bet that would work. 8 minus 2 is 6. So let's try that. X, and then another one, x, and we need it to be 8 minus 2, so we're going to put 8 and a 2, and we want it to be a negative 8 and a positive 2 to get our negative 6. So negative 8 times positive 2 is going to be negative 16, and then negative 8 plus 2 would be negative 6. All right, I'll double check that in the answer key here. 26 should be negative 1 times x minus 8 times x plus 2. Yep. All right, one more of these. I'm going to put my highest term first, so I've got negative 3x to the 4th. Then I've got plus 21x to the 3rd plus 24x squared. All right, first of all, I know that I can pull a negative 3 out of here and an x squared out. All right, so that means this one, I'm going to get rid of that negative 3 and 2 of those x's, and I'm going to have x squared, and that's what I want. 3 times 7 makes 21, so negative 7x. I took 2 of those x's away, so there's 1 left. And then negative 3 times 8 is 24. And no x's left. All right, so it's got to multiply to equal negative 8. And add to equal negative 7. 8 times 1, I think that'll work because 8 minus 1 is 7. Alright, so I'm going to pull all these, negative 3x squared, and then I'm going to have an x here, and an x here. And then if I put my 8 and my 1 in there, I would need it to be negative 8 plus 1 to get that negative 7. So if I multiplied 8 times 1, I would get negative 8. And then if I added negative 8 and positive 1, I'm going to get negative 7. Alright, I'm going to scooch this board over a little bit to give us some more room, because these require some room. Alright, so we're going to do that. Now we have more room to write. Alright, find A, B, and C. Alright, so first I'm just going to write A equals B equals and C equals. Then I'm going to copy these off as a small triangle and a big triangle. Okay, my small triangle will be 5A and 4 right there. Okay, my big triangle is going to have C right here for that. Then 5 plus 3 would be 8, and then A plus B. Okay. Alright, so to find A, I can use Pythagorean theorem. So I can do 5 squared plus 4 squared equals A squared, right? So it's my 2 legs squared. That would be 25 plus 16 equals A squared, and that would be 41. 1 equals A squared. So A equals the square root of 41. Yep. So A, I've got square root of 41. That part wasn't too hard. Alright, so I need to replace this right here with square root of 41, and then that means this is square root of 41. Alright, now to find C, I can use my scale factor, so I can say 5 to 8, 5 times my scale factor equals 8, right? So then I divide by 5, and I know my scale factor equals 8 over 5 when I'm going from the small triangle to the large triangle. So I'm going to use that same scale factor on 4 to C, right? So if I said 5 times my scale factor, I get 8. So if I do 4 times my scale factor, I will get C. So 4 times my scale factor equals C, and I know my scale factor is, what did I say it was? 8 over 5, right? Yes. So 4 over 1 times 8 over 5. 8 times 4 is 32 over 5. Okay, so C should be 32 over 5, and it is. Okay, got that. Now, it's B that's tricky. Alright, so I need to multiply by my scale factor to get to B. So I'm going to multiply that times my scale factor, right, to get B. So I'm going to say the square root of 41 times my scale factor, which is 8 over 5, equals the square root of 41 plus B, right, because it's A plus B, square root of 41 plus B. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is try to get rid of this fraction, so I'm going to do times 5 times 5, right? I'm going to multiply both sides times 5 to get rid of that fraction. And now I have 8 times the square root of 41 equals 5 times the square root of 41 plus 5b. Now these are like terms, 8 square root of 41, 5 square root of 41. So I can subtract 5 times the square root of 41 minus 5 times the square root of 41. Those cancel, and I'm going to get 8 minus 5 is 3 times the square root of 41 equals 5b. And now the last step is to divide by 5. And I'm going to get b equals 3 times the square root of 41 over 5. So 3 square root of 41 over 5. And that is the answer to D. A little bit tricky on the B part. If you can just get A and C, and then let me know and I'll work a couple more of the B parts in class. So like if you're getting stuck on those, just leave it blank and then I can work it in class. But try to work it if you can. Alright, that is it for lesson 26. Thanks for watching.